Hannah Klein is 23 years old. She has just received her first real paycheck, $2,200 after taxes, from her first real job as a junior graphic designer at a small marketing firm in Denver. She is sitting at the small kitchen table in her one-bedroom apartment, looking at the deposit notification on her phone. The number on the screen is exciting. The number on the screen is also a decision, because what Hannah does with the next 10 years of those paychecks, not the next 10 months, the next 10 years, will determine almost everything about whether she spends her 30s building wealth or starting over. Most people in their 20s get this exactly backwards. They treat their 20s as the decade to live a little, spend a little, enjoy yourself, and then in your 30s, you will get serious. But the math does not work that way. The math says your 20s are the decade where small, quietly smart purchases compound into massive long-term outcomes, and the decade you cannot get back if you spend it wrong. This is a story about 7 specific purchases Hannah Klein made between the ages of 23 and 33, none of them flashy. Most of them under a few $100s that quietly changed the trajectory of her entire financial life. You can copy every one of them. Before we walk through Hannah's 7 purchases, here is the framing that makes all of them make sense. It is called compound interest, and it is the single most important concept in personal finance, and the one almost nobody internalizes until it is too late to fully use. Compound interest works like this. A small amount of money invested today grows not just by its own returns, but by the returns on its returns. Over 10 years, that compounding is modest. Over the past 20 years, it has accelerated. Over 40 years, it becomes mathematically absurd. Here is a number that will either motivate you or depress you, depending on when you are watching this video. $200 a month invested in a basic stock market index fund, starting at age 23, growing at the long-term average of 8% annually, becomes approximately $780,000 by age 65. The same $200 a month, started at age 33 instead, becomes approximately $340,000. The 10-year delay cost $440,000. Not by spending more, not by working harder, just by starting 10 years later. Your 20s are not a financial holding pattern. Your 20s are the decade where you have the one thing the people in their 40s cannot buy back at any price: time. Hannah understood this in a way her friends did not. Watch what she did with it. Hannah grew up in a Midwestern suburb where most of the adults she knew had financial lives best described as quietly precarious. Her parents worked hard, paid their bills, and never quite had emergency savings. Her uncle filed for bankruptcy twice. Her grandmother, the one who gave Hannah the small silver pendant she has worn every day since she was 14, used to tell her, half-jokingly, that the wisest thing anyone could do with money was to make it before you actually needed it. Hannah took her first job in Denver 6 weeks after graduating from a state college with a degree in graphic design. The salary is $52,000 a year, which, after taxes, rent, student loan minimum payments, and basic living expenses, leaves her about $600 a month in real disposable income. $600 a month is not a lot. It is also, as Hannah is about to demonstrate, more than enough to start building the rest of her financial life if it is spent correctly. The first purchase she makes will not feel like an investment. It will feel like a small risk. Hannah's first significant purchase as a working adult is not for fun. It is not for clothes for her new job. Her first significant purchase is $1,800 in tools to start a freelance graphic design side practice. The breakdown: a refurbished iPad Pro and Apple Pencil for client-facing work, $1,200. A domain and a year of hosting for a portfolio website, $80. An online course on advanced UI/UX design, $400. A subscription to professional fonts and design assets is $120 for the year, $1,800 total. About 3 months of her real disposable income? To Hannah's friends, this looks like an irresponsible decision for someone in her financial position. Her friend Mia, who graduated the same year and now works in marketing for a hotel chain, asks her over brunch why she would spend $1,800 she does not really have on equipment for a job she does not have to do. Hannah's answer is the answer that most 20-somethings never figure out. A side hustle in your 20s is not a luxury or a hobby. It is leverage. The risk profile of your 20s is structurally different from the risk profile of any other decade you will ever live. You probably do not have a mortgage. You probably do not have children. If a side hustle fails in your 20s, you lose some money and some weekends. If it succeeds, you build a second income stream that compounds in parallel to your salary for the next 40 years. 6 months after Hannah's purchase, she has 11 freelance clients, and her side business is generating about $1,500 a month in profit. By 18 months, that side business is matching her day job income. The $1,800 she spent in her first month of working was, mathematically, the highest return purchase she will make in her entire 20s. Hannah's second purchase is so boring that nobody at any party will ever ask her about it. It is also the most powerful financial decision she will make in her entire 20s. On a Sunday afternoon, 3 months into her job, Hannah opens a Roth IRA at a major brokerage. Fidelity, in her case though Vanguard or Schwab work identically, and sets up an automatic transfer of $400 a month from her checking account into a single low-cost total stock market index fund. The choice of fund matters less than people think. The choice to automate matters more than people realize. Automation is the entire game. Hannah is not saving $400 a month because she is disciplined. She is saving $400 a month because the money leaves her checking account before she ever sees it. The fund she chooses is the broadest possible, a fund that owns small fractional pieces of every publicly traded company in the United States. Its annual expense ratio is 0.03%. Over 42 years, that fund will return approximately the long-term average of the American stock market. Now run the math. $400 a month, automated from age 23 to age 65, growing at 8% annually, becomes approximately $1.5 million. The contributions Hannah herself made over those 42 years total about $201,000. The remaining $1.3 million is the compounding, the returns on the returns on the returns. Hannah will, in her 60s, look at that account and realize that the single most important financial decision of her entire life was the click on a Sunday afternoon in Denver at age 23 when she set up the automatic transfer. Not the salary increases, not the side hustle wins, the click. Hannah's third purchase is one that her cousin in Minneapolis, who has spent his entire 20s working 90 hours a week and never traveling, will later describe to her as the moment he realized she was playing a different game than he was. At age 24, Hannah signs up for a travel rewards credit card with a substantial sign-up bonus. Chase Sapphire Preferred. The standard in this category? She does not change her spending habits at all. She puts her existing expenses on the card. Rent that allows credit card payment, groceries, the side hustle subscriptions, occasional restaurants, and pays the card off in full every single month. Never carries a balance. Within 10 months, she has accumulated enough points to redeem a round-trip flight from Denver to Tokyo. Total out-of-pocket cost for the flight, after points redemption, $380 in taxes and fees. The market price of the same flight would have been $1,500. Hannah spends 9 days in Tokyo. She eats at a yakitori counter run by a man who has been making the same 6 skewers for 40 years and barely speaks to his customers. She gets lost in a residential neighborhood in Shimokitazawa and finds her way back via a vending machine that sells umbrellas. She watches strangers be polite to each other in ways she has never seen in America. The trip changes something about how she thinks about being a person in the world. And here is the part that the personal finance world rarely acknowledges. Strategic travel in your 20s, done on credit card points and budget infrastructure, not on finance debt, is not a financial mistake. It is a kind of education that no book can teach. The version of Hannah who came back from Tokyo at 24 made different decisions for the rest of her life than the version of Hannah who had never left her own time zone. Hannah's fourth purchase, made about a year into her job, is a $400 advanced UI/UX design course from a respected industry instructor. Not from someone posing next to a rented luxury car in a YouTube ad, but from a working designer with a real career and a real curriculum. Hannah spends 6 weeks doing the course on evenings and weekends. The certificate at the end is worth nothing on its own. The skills she acquires are worth a great deal. 6 months later, her side hustle portfolio, her new certification plus a strong performance review at her day job, resulted in her boss promoting her to senior designer. The salary increase is $15,000 annually. The $400 course returned a $15,000 raise within the first year and then continued returning that $15,000 every single year for as long as she works. Annualized, that course returned approximately 3,750% in year 1. There is no investment in any market that comes close to a well-chosen skills course in your 20s. The reason is brutally simple. Your brain in your 20s is still in its most flexible learning state. can acquire a new skill in 3 months that would take you 9 months in your 40s. The compounding of that skill, across promotions, side hustle pricing, freelance rates, and confidence, runs for the next 40 years. Most people in their 20s spend money on courses that are designed to make them feel like they are doing something, instead of actually teaching them something. Hannah avoided that trap by doing the thing nobody likes doing, checking the instructor's actual career, reading independent reviews, and asking working designers if they had heard of the course. The course she chose was unglamorous and rigorous. It worked. Hannah's 5th purchase happens around her 25th birthday. 2 of her co-workers at the marketing firm have, in the past year, bought new vehicles. One financed a $40,000 Bronco. The other, a $46,000 Mazda CX-9. Both of them complain about their monthly car payments at lunch about once a week. Hannah, who has been getting by on a beat-up 2010 Hyundai Elantra her parents gave her when she moved to Denver, decides it is time to replace it. She does not go to a dealership. She finds a 2018 Honda Civic with 60,000 miles, single owner, on a private sale listing in suburban Lakewood. The seller is a 60-something man whose wife stopped driving the car a year ago, and they want it gone. Hannah test drives it, has a local mechanic inspect it for $200, and offers $11,500 in cash. The man accepts. She drives home that afternoon with a paid-off, reliable car that will last her at least 10 more years. Her insurance on the Civic is $90 a month versus the $280 her Bronco-driving coworker pays. Over the next 7 years, the difference Hannah does not spend on a car payment, plus the lower insurance plus the lower fuel cost of a sedan versus an SUV, frees up approximately $70,000 of capital that she redirects into her Roth IRA, her brokerage account, and an eventual down payment fund. Her 2 coworkers, same income, same firm. At the end of those 7 years, will own depreciating vehicles worth a fraction of what they paid, with nothing else accumulated. Hannah will own the same Civic, plus $70,000 in additional invested capital. The single car decision, made at 25, will become the single largest wealth differentiator between her and her peer group. By the time she is 32, Hannah's 6th purchase is the one almost nobody in their 20s takes seriously, because the costs of ignoring it do not show up for a decade, and the benefits compound so silently that they are easy to dismiss. At 26, after a winter spent slightly too sedentary at her side hustle, Hannah signs up for a $40 a month gym membership at a no-frills neighborhood gym in the Highlands. She also starts a weekly Sunday evening grocery habit, meal prepping enough food for the work week so she stops defaulting to takeout 3 nights a week. The total monthly cost of these 2 changes is approximately $150 more than she was spending before. The economic case for this is the part most people miss. Hannah's friend Alex, who works in the same firm, has been treating his body like a temporary residence. Energy drinks, late-night fast food, 4 hours of sleep on weeknights. For the same 3 years, Hannah has been making different choices. By age 28, Alex has a chronic back issue, sleeps poorly, has been to the urgent care twice for stress-related symptoms, and has cycled through 2 diet plans that did not stick. He spends an estimated $3,000 a year on health-adjacent costs he would not otherwise have. Hannah, at 28, has more energy, sharper focus, makes better decisions at work, and works through her side hustle backlog faster than she used to. The economic value of her physical capacity, even before you count the long-term medical cost avoidance, is substantial. By 33, the difference in their physical baselines will affect their respective careers in ways that are difficult to measure, but easy to see at a glance. Hannah's $150 monthly investment in basic health turned out to be one of the most leveraged purchases of her decade. Hannah's 7th and final 20s purchase happens at age 26, when she realizes she cannot afford a down payment on a house yet, but does not want to wait until she can to start building real estate exposure. So she does something almost nobody her age does. She allocates $100 a month, separate from her Roth IRA, separate from her brokerage taxable account, into a publicly traded REIT index fund, a real estate investment trust, specifically a fund of trusts that own commercial real estate, apartment complexes, warehouses, data centers, and similar income-producing properties. The fund pays a quarterly dividend that gets automatically reinvested. Hannah is not buying a house yet. She is buying a small slice of the entire American income-producing real estate market. By the time she is 29, that REIT position is worth approximately $4,500. By 32, When she has finally saved enough in her brokerage account to make a 20% down payment on a small condo near Wash Park, the REIT exposure has grown to about $9,000 and continues paying her quarterly dividends. The point of this seventh purchase is not the money the REITs will make her. The point is that she started exposing herself to real estate returns 6 years before she could afford to own real estate directly. She did not wait to be wealthy enough to participate. She participated at the scale she could afford. That distinction between waiting until you can do the big version of something and starting at the small version now is the entire game in your 20s. Hannah played it correctly 7 different times in a row. Here is what most personal finance content gets wrong about purchases like these. It treats them as a list of separate decisions. Pick one, pick a few, do whatever feels right. But Hannah's 7 purchases were not 7 separate decisions. They were one decision, repeated 7 times. The decision to play the long game, deliberately, in a culture that constantly tells you not to. The side hustle generated income that funded the Roth IRA contributions. The Roth IRA grew because Hannah's expenses were low enough, and she drove the used Civic instead of financing the Bronco. The Civic was sustainable because her health stayed good, and her health stayed good because she made the gym and grocery decisions early. The skills course unlocked the promotion that raised her income, which allowed her to increase her Roth contributions. The travel sharpened her thinking and broadened the relationships that brought side hustle clients. The REIT exposure positioned her for the eventual condo purchase. Every one of these 7 purchases reinforces every other one. Subtract any single one of them. Let her finance a Bronco at 23. Let her skip the side hustle. Let her never take the course. And the entire compounding system slows dramatically. The wealth Hannah built between 23 and 33 was not the result of any one purchase. It was the result of 7 purchases that fit together like the gears of a machine she designed herself, while everyone around her was buying the parts of a machine that ran in the opposite direction. Now, here is the part of the story that personal finance videos almost always skip. Hannah's choices in her 20s were not just mathematically smart. They were socially expensive. While her coworkers were posting Bronco purchases on social media and going to expensive concerts in Vegas, Hannah was driving a 6-year-old Civic and meal prepping rice and chicken on Sundays. While her college friends were taking out auto loans and complaining about their payments at brunch, Hannah was rebalancing her brokerage account on her laptop. The pressure to keep up was real, not the manufactured Instagram influencer kind of pressure. The actual lived pressure of watching the people closest to you spend in a pattern that requires you to either join them or be quietly mocked for not joining them. Hannah was mocked gently by friends who did not understand what she was doing. She heard the word boring more than once. She heard the words too cheap, too disciplined, too uptight. None of those words ever stung as much as her friends seemed to think they would, because Hannah understood something most 20-somethings never figure out. The decade she was living in was a decade of investments that would only pay off later. The people mocking her in her 20s were going to wonder in their 30s why their financial lives looked so different from hers. By that point, it would be too late for them to easily catch up. The compounding had already happened. Hannah's 20s were not boring. Hannah's 20s were precise. The difference is the entire video. 10 years after that first paycheck, Hannah Klein is 33 years old. She owns a small condo near Wash Park, recently sold, and just closed on a modest single-family home in Sloan's Lake. Her Roth IRA balance is approximately $140,000. Her taxable brokerage account is approximately $190,000. Her REIT exposure is approximately $18,000. Her freelance design practice, run alongside her senior designer day job, brings in another $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Her total net worth, 10 years after that $2,200 deposit notification, is approximately $420,000. None of this came from a windfall. None of this came from a tech IPO or a crypto trade or a viral side project. All of this came from 7 specific purchases made deliberately between the ages of 23 and 33, each one designed to compound with the others. Hannah is now in a position her parents never reached. She has options. She can leave her day job whenever she wants to. She can travel for 2 months without checking her balance every day. She can buy a beat-up VW van and take a sabbatical. Or she can keep building, or she can do both. The wealth itself is not the point. The optionality is the point, and the optionality came from 1 decade of 7 small, repeated, unglamorous purchases. Your 20s will pass either way. The only question is whether you spend them building the foundation for the rest of your life, or spend them mistaking visible success for actual success. Hannah chose the first one. So can you. This story is composite. The 7 purchase categories and the underlying compound interest math are real and accurate. Hannah Klein is not a real person. The specific dollar figures are illustrative. Exact returns vary, exact salaries vary, and your numbers will differ from hers. This is not financial advice. If you want the free 7 purchase checklist Hannah used, the specific products, the specific brokerages, the link is in the description. Subscribe for one new money story every week. The systems nobody explains, explained. Your 20s are not waiting. Start with one purchase today.